p.m., please. And from the agenda, you all can all see that we have two items on there, and I'm going to turn this over now to Kelly and to Kim to lead us through.
Good evening, everyone. So Kim and I will probably tag team on this one. What we'd like to start doing is to walk through the CABE policy audit review. This audit was done in 2019. It was completed in March of 2019. And the board did start chipping away at some of those recommendations up until COVID, and then came back to tackle a few more thereafter. But we thought it was important, kind of starting out the new policy review or policy audit with this committee, to start back at the beginning, go back to the last CABE review that we had as a district, just remind this committee of some of the recommendations that should be the foundation of our work as we move forward with our policies. And Kim and I have a few ideas. We also had the opportunity to connect with Kate about a week ago of how we might be able to tackle this project moving forward. And so I'll start, and I think Kim will just kind of click on the screen and bring up some of the highlight in the audit. It's quite a lengthy document, so we'll just go through a few of the key points of it. So in the audit, they really broke it down into what was Danbury doing well, what were areas that we were missing completely. So they phrased it as required or mandated, legally mandated policies that we did not have. Where are some areas that they would recommend or suggest that we can have policies? We're not legally required, but we certainly can have these policies, and they strongly encourage us to have discussions about what we should add. And then lastly, any policies that we have that may not be needed anymore, just are out of date, no longer required. So those could be removed from our work. And so the good news is in the policy audit is they did, and again, this is back to 2019, state that we were in fair condition. And in speaking with CABE, who conducted the audit, the fair rating was really because we were missing some of those legally mandated policies. And the good news is the work that we've done over the last few years has brought us into compliance with those. So Kim and I wanted to start by going through all the legally mandated policies that were recommended by the CABE audit that were missing from our policy manual that we've now brought up into compliance, and kind of just go through so you have an idea of the work that's been done over the last couple of years in adding those policies to the district. And then we'll talk about kind of the next steps moving forward, where we can look at some of those suggested or strongly recommended policies that CABE has that we may want to consider adding to our policy manual, as well as those that are kind of out of date and no longer necessary that we can remove. The other main recommendation from the CABE audit was renumbering or recodifying, they term it, in the audit. And what that essentially means is Danbury had our own system for coding our policies dating back to 99 and 2000. And as we've updated many of our policies using the CABE service, we have about, I would say about 30% of our policies that are written in the CABE numbered series system, and the other 70 that are not. And so CABE is also recommending, as we go through the policies, for consistency and continuity, that we utilize the CABE numbering system, whether or not we decide to make tweaks or changes to the policy, just for an easy reference system, so we can have a table of contents. The policies move forward from the 1000 series consisting of board bylaws to the 2000 series and so forth. And each one of those series numbers is equated to whether it be employment, whether it be Board of Ed bylaws, student records, things of that nature. And so it'll just bring that consistency and continuity so people will know exactly where to go and what numbered system should be utilized.
The other thing I was going to try, I've been trying to share my screen, but it's not, I think because it's a CABE link. But if you go onto the Danbury website, I'm sure you've all seen it, but under your Board of Ed tab, under your Board of Ed page, there's on the right, there's a link to board policies. And so you can see what happens is we shuttle straight into the CABE hosted server. So one of the things that we asked CABE to do, which they hadn't done, was to do a hard copy of everything we have. Because we just want to make sure that everything that we originally started with translated into CABE, CABE did all of this kind of audit and tweaking work, and then we'd like to have just a hard copy. I'm not generally super old school, but I think it's good to have a hard copy, just so that if anything were to happen, if anybody would decide they wanted to hack and mess with all of our policies just for fun, it's good to have them. And you'll see in the boardroom, there's a series of notebooks that we originally had. So we're going to try to just replicate a couple copies of those to have them. It's also nice in meetings just to have them, but the changes, we'll have to coordinate changes back and forth with CABE to make sure that they get translated into the hosted website.
Yeah. Terry, you have a question? Sorry to interrupt, Kelly.
I'm sorry. I think I had mentioned that I had gotten a hard copy when I first came on the board from Kara. She was very helpful. But I had asked, it was missing the 7,000 section. And I still haven't gotten it or still haven't seen it. What's the story on that?
Yeah, I think what happened, and Kelly and I had exactly the same problem, and we struggled with it all summer. We couldn't quite figure out what had happened. I think what happened was, at least the way we understand it from talking to CABE, is we sent them our policies. Instead of sending us back a complete set, they sent us back the ones that needed to be tweaked and edited and changed. So things that were okay, they were like, oh, they're okay. And we didn't get them back. So that's why we have this kind of mishmash of things that got tweaked. And we said that to the woman from CABE when Kelly and I talked with her last week, and we said, couldn't you print out like a complete set? And she's like, oh, that wasn't part of the audit. So I think we just have to go. We've asked them now to do it, just to run a complete set so that we have one. But I think, Teresa, that's why I think they only sent back to us the ones that had been tweaked and not the ones that were fine. So that's why we've had some confusion with it. The other thing is, we found when we started this exercise, we didn't have the number crosswalk. It was missing. So we got that. So now we can kind of crosswalk all the numbers and make sure that everything is there. So it's a little bit tedious, but we're in a much better place than we were 4 months ago when we weren't sure where all those pieces were. So you should have a full set, pristine, sitting in the boardroom, and then another one in Kevin's office, and maybe a third one just to have, and then they'll be housed on the website.
And then
when,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, do you know when it'll be on the website?
So it's up now. Everything is there now. So really our act of printing it out is just like belts and suspenders. So everything's up on the website now. So if you go, like I said, for some reason it's not picking up this. I'm trying to share the screen, but it's giving me a whiteboard and I don't know what that is. So I'm wondering if it's because this is a link into a website, but I can't show it to you. But if you go, like I said, into the Danbury K-12 website, go under the Board of Ed, and then when you go to the Board of Ed page where all your pictures are, oh, there it is on the right-hand side. There it is right at the top there, Board of Education Policies. That's where you click. If you click on that, and then you'll see all the series listed on the left-hand side. So that's our current state of affairs, including things that we've changed.
But I don't see the 7,000.
Oh yeah, you're right. I don't see is there a 7,000?
I think there is.
Just curious if during the renumbering process, if perhaps it got handled differently. But I do see it goes up to 9,000, and
Yeah.
that means that 7 and 8 are both absent.
Yeah. Sometimes we hold things in reserve, but I just don't recall that one in particular, but we'll definitely, as we're going through, we'll look at them. I mean, I think as Kelly pointed out, our strategy at this point is to start with sharing with you tonight all the things that we've updated, just to see, so you can see where they are. Those are all updated. Then to go back through series by series, and we probably could do the 0s and the 100s. 200s are done. So 0s and 100s tonight or in the next meeting. And then we could probably knock off one. Kelly was saying the next couple are kind of big. So I would say in, maybe a half a dozen meetings, we'll be done going through all of them. So we'll look in between this meeting and the next meeting to see what happened to 7s and 8s.
So Kim, I just pulled, just for reference, the 7,000 series is new construction. So there are policies related to that. They were in draft form at the time of this audit. So we will go back and find them. And just to give, and I can certainly send a link, an email update to this, but the 0 series is the mission, goals, and objectives, which is a very small number, as you can see here, only the 4 policies with a form there. Then the 1,000 is community relations policies. The 2,000 is administration, and those were the first series that were tackled after the audit. So those were brought up to date as of May of 2019. So those are fully compliant right now. The 3,000 series is business and non-instructional operations. The 4,000 series is personnel for both certified and non-certified. 5,000 series is students. 6,000 series is instruction. 7,000 is new construction. And the 9,000 is the board bylaws.
So there is no 8.
There is no 8, yes, but the link for the for the 7, I'm sorry, for the 7, we will follow up with CABE on that, on why that link is not current on the website.
Okay. And
I
I
think
did
what we
notice
can-
that,
Okay.
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think what we can say is at the conclusion of this process with you, we will have gotten through all the series, we will have added all of the tweaked ones, we will have removed all of the obsolete ones, and we should have a pristine set by the time we're done with this.
Michelle, you have a question? You're on mute. It's still on mute. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
How
There you
about
go.
now?
Yeah,
Now,
good.
sorry, everyone, apologies. Where would finance fall under administration
Let's
in
see.
that
Business,
Business and
business
instructional.
3,000.
business?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
So, yeah,
Okay.
the budget is the
And-
3,100, and then it goes from there.
And so when we go through all these sections, are you going to highlight the actual changes that you made?
Yes.
Like, it
So what-
was this, but it's this. You know what? We're going to drop this. We're going to add this. We changed this word, but we're going to go through it step by step.
So
Yeah,
what
so
we will-
Beautiful.
you've already done you've already passed a lot of the changes that CABE recommended. In our work with you last year, we passed a bunch of
Right.
those. You're in pretty good shape. I think it's gonna be more deleting than anything.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I just want to bring up that we need to adjust this landing page too, because there's some old content on here.
will do.
All right. Thank you.
Oh,
Kevin,
yeah.
you have your hand up. Did you need,
Hi, Kate. Hi, everybody.
how you doing?
I'm doing
Hello.
better. Thank you.
I'm glad.
So I think part of the issue around the 7,000 series as well is they may not have been required policies. And so that could also be a reason why we didn't have any 7,000s reflected. For example, I think one of them recommended by CABE is about air quality, which might be a newer policy that's been added to the 7,000 deck. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. The 8,000 series, for whatever reason, I don't recall anything in the 8,000 series and don't see anything under the heading. It's kind of odd that it skips from 6 to 8, but I mean 6 to 9, but sorry about that. For whatever reason, that's just the way CABE had the number.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
No, thank you, Kate.
Any
You
other
would-
questions before we keep going here? Sorry.
Go ahead. We're all talking at once.
I know. Sorry. All right. I think we can move forward. Thank you.
So the other thing we just wanted to highlight for everyone's attention, and you'll find this on page 6 of the policy audit, those were the missing mandated policies. And the good news is from 2019 to present day, with this fall being the most recent, every single one of those policies has been added to our manual. So there are not any legally mandated policies that are missing from the Danbury Board of Education policy manual at this time. And so that's the list starting with policy 0521, non-discrimination, and running all the way through Title I, parent and family engagement. And again, I'm getting that right off of page 6 of the policy audit. Kim and I went through and personally checked that these were all updated, the dates that they were that they were adopted by the Board of Education, and they're all accurately reflected on our district website as well. So you can take a look at those. Teresa?
Excellent.
The listing, did you share that with us of the CABE requirements?
It's so the policy audit is hyperlinked in your agenda from this evening.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't catch it.
Okay.
Okay.
Everything that Kim and I just spoke to is outlined in this report. So if any of you haven't had the chance, I would encourage, it's a 9-page report that you read that, so that it just will help kind of set the stage for our work moving forward.
I might be missing this, but I'm looking at the policy committee agenda and I don't see a hyperlink for that. in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does anybody else see that?
No, I thought that was the Zoom link. That's stream that, and that's all I got.
Yeah, it's not linked in that.
Okay, we'll make sure that the link is active. I apologize for that. What we can also do is, following this, we'll send you all the members of the policy committee just a PDF version of it via email as well, so you have that for
That's
your
fine.
reference.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
I'm sorry about that.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other questions on the audit or any of the updates?
No questions?
Kelly, I did have a question. I'm sorry, Kate.
Go ahead.
Kelly, do you and Kim, do you guys anticipate, when do you anticipate the update from CABE regarding a hard copy of what we have and don't have, and that crosswalk of the numbers? No,
So
that's
we-
still outstanding.
We have the crosswalk of the numbers. We were able to get that today. We had, I think it was going to a wrong email address. So we got
Okay.
that today. So we have the crosswalk of the numbers, which is huge. The actual physical hard copy and printing it out, apparently they're getting ready for their convention. So they're saying they're targeting January. That actually probably works well for you because you've got it all housed online right now. So your policies are live. Anybody can see them at any time. And as we go through and start deleting, then when they print out the copy in January, we know that everything that you've been deleting in the next couple of meetings is going to be gone. So it actually might not be horrible that there's a delay. But that's what they're telling us, is they can't get that to us until January.
Okay.
And
So-
in the meantime, if we decide to go through and do, for example, the 0 series and 1000 series, let's say in our next meeting, what Kim and I will do is put together hyperlinks to all of those policies so that you'll have them with the recommended updates or tweaks, so that you can review them. And we don't think it needs to stall our work until January when we get the full hard copy.
Michelle, did you have a question?
So, yeah, I guess we were supposed to have this documentation, the 9 pages to review now, right? If we have questions, but we don't have it, so we won't meet again until when?
We're
2
meeting
weeks,
at the end of this month, yeah.
in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I don't think you'll have so many questions. I think what will happen, Michelle, is you'll see it's a little dry. I'd read it at night if you can't go to sleep.
I have
But
insomnia, so I'll try it.
I do too. So I think what you'll find is when you look at it, there's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of, and we went through and just double checked that we had added everything, as Kelly said. So really, I think our next mission, having now done that, is to say at our next meeting, we're going to go through the 0 series and the 1000 series. And if you look at those kind of in the interim, I think there's 5 entries in the 0 series. And then there's maybe, I don't know, 2 dozen, 3 dozen in the 1000 series, and they all look good. So we're just going to go through and make sure that, we highlight for you if we had changed anything recently so that you can see it. And then we'll put together 0s, 1000s, and 2000s are already done. So that will leave for a subsequent meeting, 3000s. We could probably do 3000s and 4000s. And then 4000s are personnel. So that's going to take a little while. And then we'll have 5000s for students, 6000s for instruction. And then the bylaws is a fairly small one, the 9000. So I think you're looking at a couple of meetings. But really the plan would be to kind of use that audit report as just the roadmap, so that when we go into these series, we're just going to be kind of comparing, just saying, yep, we got this and everything's here. Or this, they suggest that we can delete it because it's obsolete. So 1,600, we recommend that you delete it, and we'll look at it together and you'll say, okay, yep, we're going to delete that.
Because I know I missed one meeting, so perhaps you all discussed it already, but I know that there was certain policies that you were looking at, like regarding like the playground, if somebody touches somebody, what was the intention, as well as sports. Did that all kind of get resolved or discussed? And I just, in one meeting, or is that part of the series you're talking about, which is like section 5 or something way out there?
I think
Um,
that some of those that you're talking about are going to be in the student series, but I think that what you'll find is what we've done so far in making sure we've got the mandatory policies are the generic ones. So the things that, are big ticket, like we need to have an anti-discrimination policy, we need to have our equity statement. So those pieces, we did all the big pieces. As we go through them now, I think it might be a good place to highlight, if we're going to do the 1,000 series, it's not super long. We'll kind of preview it and say, gee, in the past we've had conversations about X, and here's where it sits, and we can either do it at the time, circle back around with it. But because some of these have been, we've been using them for a very long time. And others of them might need to be tweaked. And that's what we're kind of going through. We're doing the broad strokes with CABE, and then the unique to Danbury strokes will go as we go through the series.
But there's nothing that needs to be addressed more, urgently than another, which is why we're just heading right down the path. Okay.
We
Thank you.
took care of
That's
all the urgent. Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Terry, you have a question?
Yes, I don't have the book in front of me, and I'm hesitant about screening into the board policy online. Just wanted to ask, are the policies dated when they're changed?
Yes.
So that helps. So
Yeah.
if we have policy for X dated January 2020, then and that's what we're supposed to have, then that's easy. That's
Right.
easy. Okay, excellent.
Yep.
All right.
You'll see the date that it was adopted is at the bottom of each
Okay.
say, and that was the date that it was approved and voted on by the board.
Okay, thank you.
And the other thing that we're looking for when we go through the series by series is to make sure that the crosswalk of the numbers transferred correctly too, because for example, our community relations might have been, policy 55 or whatever, and now it's in the 1,000 series. So we just want to make sure that all of that translated as well. So it'll be a good opportunity to crosswalk the numbers too.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions? Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think it's gonna feel like a cross between really clerical and then finding some that you go, oh no, you know what? We might want to talk about this one. I think it's gonna be kind of a in between.
And that's why it's important for us as a group to go through everything so that we do, we dot our I's and cross our T's, but then we also talk about the issues that for Danbury might require some, more nuanced, application of our policies.
Like for
Terry?
example,
I want, like what Kim was saying, doing a hard copy, would this be easier if we're in person as opposed to doing this over Zoom?
It would be nice to be in person. I think for some of these, I think some of these are going to be sort of like, there's not going to be a whole lot of modification that needs to be done. And so for some of those, if we can accommodate a virtual meeting, that might work better for the, purpose of us being able to meet in a more regular fashion. But for some of these, I definitely think having some in-person conversation, especially if they're lengthier and there's a little bit more nuance to the conversation. I think for us to sit down and have that conversation face to face would be great.
Thank you.
Kim, you were saying?
What was I gonna say? Oh, I know. Wait, I was just thinking, sorry. I was thinking one really good example that you'll find as we go through is, the crazy hiring policy that we have, where if you're a cabinet member or a principal, you go through the 2 panels and there's all kinds of pages. That's a very Danbury centric policy. So that's one that's existed for quite a while, that works for us, that there's really not a reason to change it, but it's really unique to Danbury. So we're looking to make sure that all of that got transcribed correctly into this new world that is the CABE structure. That's a good example.
Thank you, Kim.
Kate, I also wanted to offer, and just piggyback on what I think I heard you mention earlier. I think it's important that the committee be reminded that this is also a time and opportunity, if, you know, the board is getting feedback from the community, our parents, our families, and they feel like we need to revisit a policy, that this discussion takes place here, and we use this as an opportunity to kind of advance and further that discussion. So I just wanted to remind everyone, you know, this is an opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, before we continue, any other questions? Any questions from non-committee members? All right. Item number 2. I assume, unless you guys have other things to add.
Item number 2 is an update on the policy review process. So I think Kim and I shared some of that information as we were going over this, but we would like to propose moving forward to be in compliance with the CABE audit, that we select a series or 2 to be the topic of each meeting. Certainly, if we feel as a committee that we need more time to delve further into a policy, or you know, to extend when you start to get into some of the personnel, the student records and instruction, those are quite lengthy. We may need 2 meetings to go over all the policies contained within those. To Teresa's point, we can note when the policy was last reviewed and adopted by the Board of Education. And then what we'll look to do is 3 things. Are there any recommended updates based on the CABE audit? So we've brought all the missing policies back into compliance, but if there's any recommended tweaks or changes or updates, sometimes it's a new legal reference, other times it's you know, a switch of wording in the policy, we'll add those. If there are any policies that are no longer required or needed or kind of outdated, that we'd make a recommendation to remove those. And then third, look at the numbering for some of our series and make sure that we're following the CABE numbering for all of our policies. So it'd really be content, or is there any that are outdated or need removal? And then lastly, the numbering or codifying all the policies to be in compliance with CABE, and work our way through series by series. So Kim and I were recommending. I just see that Michelle said she can't hear anything.
Just
Uh-oh. Can you hear now?
How about now?
just gonna suggest you
No.
try to log off and log back in. It could be the internet connection too.
Yeah, we've been having some issues today for sure.
It's not even raining. I don't.
I will continue, and then if I need to circle back, please let me know. So we were going to recommend that we look at the 0 series and the 1000 series for our next meeting. What we will do is send you the CABE crosswalks for those 2 series, link all the policies so that you can look at them and review them. And then, you know, we can talk through for each policy, either it's fine and no tweaks or changes needed, or we need to make an update and these are what the tweaks and changes should be. And lastly, looking at the coding for those policies.
And for those 2 particular series, do you anticipate that there is going to be a lot of revision, or that we're going to need to sit down in person to talk about any of them?
For those,
I mean, it's always possible that there's going to be more conversation, but on the whole, if those are relatively intact,
those,
I
would say
think a
that
virtual
those are,
meeting will suffice.
yeah, those are probably easier series to do. We can certainly go chronologically in order, or in numerical order, I should say, if we so choose. If we want to go out of order, there's nothing that prohibits us from doing that, but we were thinking to go series by series would make sense.
That sounds good. Any feedback or questions from committee members? All right. I would just like to say, typically we have had a policy meeting once a month, and the reason we're having 2 this month is just because we're a little bit behind in terms of trying to get this moving forward. So I do want to thank Kelly and Kim for their work to make sure that this happens, and so we can get back on track with the work that we need to do. Policy is one of the more important responsibilities that the board has, so I appreciate everybody's attendance today, and their agreement to be here again for a second meeting this month. And also would just let you know that in advance of the meeting, please do go through the material. Do prepare any questions you might have. It will make the flow of our meeting go a lot faster. And it makes it a lot easier to have those conversations if everyone comes to the table prepared to have them. Terry? You're on. Okay.
Yes. Does Kelly want us to vote to agree with this procedure, just to be formal, or we don't need a vote? I don't know.
Well, there's no action to be taken by the board on this one, so I don't think we need to actually have a formal vote for anything. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or concerns from committee members? No? Okay. Michelle, you were offline when
I think
We
I'm
were-
back on because I
Okay,
can
did
hear you
you-
guys now.
great. Did you hear that we were discussing about at the next meeting, we'll probably be looking at the 0 series and the 1000 series?
Yes, and then you had
Okay.
asked, I believe, a question about does it have to stay in chronological order, and then they said no, and then I lost a little bit, but I think I got the gist. So thank you.
Okay.
I think
Great.
thank you very much.
Any other questions or concerns from committee members? Any questions or concerns from non-committee members? All right. I think that's it. So thank you everyone for being here. Kelly and Kim, thank you for leading us forward. I know this has been a little bit of a process and a little bit more complicated than any of us would like, but I certainly appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who's shown up today and helped with this conversation. So I'll look for a motion to adjourn at 6:03 p.m. So moved by Terry. In a second, please.
Second.
Bridget, it looks like you came in just under the wire there. I'm gonna give that to you. All those in
Thanks.
favor, please.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.